We are gathered here today to talk about a very important topic, books. And before any of you run to the comments to say it, don't say it. Don't think it. Don't even breathe it. I know. This video is late. This video is so late. I swear, you take one chalet vacation getaway with 8 of your witchiest friends, and all of a sudden, reality no longer matters. Time becomes an illusion, a social construct. And whose turn was it to stoke the fire pit again? That vacation was back at the end of February, and I still don't think I've gotten my routine restarted since. I'm working on it though. I'm working on it. Now, before I keep rambling on a tangent that nobody asked for, let's get into the actual content of this video that you did come here for, and that is my March reading wrap-up. Hey there, welcome to the channel. I'm Howie, and I am a professional reader of tarot cards and astrology. I'm a chronic non-reader of horror fiction, and I'm a huge planet enthusiast. Because let's face it, something around here needs to keep these crazy trains of thoughts running on the tracks. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 4 horror books that I read in the month of March. And boy, did I have a good time reading in March. I'm very excited to talk about these books, and my only regret is that I didn't film this video soon enough after the month ended, so I'm a little worried that the old fishbowl brain is going to be iffy on recalling some of the details that I want to talk about. I may be relying a little bit on the blurbs to jog my memory, but I sincerely hope all of my enthusiasm and excitement for these books comes across accurately. Without further ado, to the first book. I started off the month of March with a very special book by a very special author who holds a very special place in my heart. And that is none other than 13 Stories by the one, the only, Jonathan Sims. And if you're not familiar with that name, I certainly hope you will be by the end of this video. This is the creator, the mastermind behind the Magnus Archives. Unfortunately, I can't talk too much about that series because that's a topic for a whole other video. But after this video, I highly recommend you go investigate and take a listen. It is gruesome. And a lot of that archival horror that you got from the Magnus Archives, you really feel it resonating and echoing in this story. Now, the gimmick with 13 Stories lies in its title. It is a series of individual stories of individual characters all living in the same apartment complex. And that apartment complex is Banyan Court. And Banyan Court was conceived, funded, and built by a very wealthy and very eccentric recluse who actually lives in Banyan Court's penthouse suite. And what happens during the course of this book is these characters all receive a mysterious invitation to a dinner party. And the dinner party is hosted by their landlord, the recluse in the penthouse suite. Nobody has a particularly close relationship to this individual. Some of them don't even know what he looks like. And one thing to remember about Banyan Court is there are actually 2 sides to this entire space. The rich side and the poor side. And so you get stories told from perspectives of people coming from the dregs and people coming from very well-off, well-to-do lives. Each of the characters that gets an invite to this dinner party goes through some sort of growing, tense, horrific series of haunts. And there are points in the stories where perspectives cross over, and you're reading this and realizing, oh, actually, I recognize who this character is. I just read their story 2 chapters ago. This isn't like an anthology or a collection of short stories that can be read individually. They all interconnect. And those Magnus Archives fans in the comments will know exactly what I'm talking about when every story is connected somehow. Be prepared with your bulletin board and your red tape for this one. And I have to say, as much as I enjoyed getting to know these characters, I really started looking at these characters through the lens of astrology at some point as well. There are certain lines and quotes and mannerisms that I captured in my commonplace book that just remind me of certain astrological aspects. This is like my new hyperfixation lately, but more on that in another video, I think. With all that said and done, and the amazing character development and the captivating nature of these people that Sims has written into this story, I unfortunately was disappointed by the ending. And I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to give anything away. The people that know me IRL and, what types of endings I like and how I like my books to conclude might be able to guess why I was disappointed with this. Sims does an amazing job of showing you this growing dread, this hidden cosmic horror woven into the fabric of this apartment complex. And I feel like he throws it away to just start a long-winded exposition towards the end of the book. And that's all I'll say about that. It was jarring for me. It didn't quite fit with the pacing of the rest of the book. I wasn't a huge fan of that ending. But the gruesomeness of it is wonderful. I'll say that. All in all, I still recommend this book. I still had an amazing time. Jonathan Sims' way with words is otherworldly. It truly is. And I'd give this 4.5 stars, honestly. Almost was a 5. If that ending had just been cleaned up a bit, it would have been easy 5-star win, S-tier book. But we'll put it in A-tier for now. Next up for March, I went back to an author that I had previously read, and this is going to be a very surprising entry in this video. It shocked me. So make sure you're sitting down for this one. So I ended up reading Strange Pictures by Uketsu. And for those of you who have watched the previous reading wrap-up, I'll link that somewhere over here for you, where I talk about his other book, Strange Houses, I really wasn't that impressed with Strange Houses. So I had very, very minimal expectations for Strange Pictures. But, big but, Uketsu fucking delivered with this book. What a change of pace and atmosphere. And I think it's because this book was actually written first. So Strange Houses is technically his second book. And I feel like Strange Houses, now that I understand it, suffers from Uketsu's success, wanting to be successful again, and maybe changing the formula too much that it didn't work out in his favor in the second book. For me, anyway. I have seen other YouTubers say that pictures is their preference over houses, but I don't think anybody's disliked Strange Houses as much as I have. But on the topic of Strange Pictures, similar to Strange Houses, the story of Strange Pictures opens with 2 students who both have a fascination in the paranormal, police investigations, in the unsolved mysteries of their communities. And one of those students stumbles upon an old blog that has a really unsettling and creepy mystery to it that you can slowly piece together by simply observing the sketches of this blogger's wife that he has shared in his blog. What ends up happening is we jump from the perspective of these 2 school students and just dive straight into the actual story of where the mystery is taking place. And I think this is why Pictures is so superior to Houses, because in Houses, the whole story read like a third-party investigation of something that had already happened, whereas Pictures just takes you straight into the past and shows you how this mystery occurred and played out. And it spans across several generations as well. The premise of this mystery that these 2 students stumble upon centers around a young couple who have just recently wedded, they've just recently purchased their first home, and they're about to have their first child together. And tragically, the wife dies during childbirth. But she leaves behind these strange pictures, these strange drawings for her husband. And eventually, the blog finishes with a final post that states cryptically, "I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. I don't think I can forgive you for what you've done, but I still love you." And so the build-up to this point is the rest of this book. And it is fascinating. It is such a twisty, psychological thriller of a story. And I feel like this book doesn't force feed you the answers where Strange Houses did. The way this book ends with the twist at the very end, it made sense. There were hints to it. you could go back to multiple points in the book and rethink and reinterpret the information you were being given in order to come to that same conclusion. Whereas Strange Houses, I found the ending really came out of nowhere. The theories that the characters were providing as answers to the mystery in that book just did not make sense to me. They were very off the wall. This story is much more concise and well written. All of the moving parts are strung together and connected. So, would I recommend Uketsu? Yes, if you read Strange Pictures. Strange Houses is interesting in and of itself, but I feel like recommending Strange Houses before Pictures might put some people off to this author, like it almost did for me. Literally the only reason I picked up Strange Pictures is because I bought the two books at the same time with the intention of reading both of them. So it's like, I already owned it, I may as well read it, and I just had such a good time reading it. Oh my god. So, I gave this 4 stars out of 5 compared to Strange Houses, which I swear I might have given it maybe 2 at best, but I really, really didn't like the second book. Strange Pictures is where it's at. It is so creepy, so unsettling, and there's multiple layers to that atmospheric dread as well, which I really appreciate. I'm going to preface this next book by saying I think I'm just a little too hypercritical for brand new breakout authors. Because this next book I read turns out to be the first novel of this particular author as well. And I had some construction and structure issues with it. The story, totally great. Loved the story. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But some of the writing I struggled with, and it kind of pulled me out of that story. And the book that I'm talking about is What Grows in the Dark by Jack Evans. And another one where the cover is just so captivating. This happens to, curiously, also be another story of another haunted woods. If y'all were here for my last reading wrap-up where I kind of tore the dark between the trees apart a little bit, same idea, haunted woods story. But enough about that. On to new books. The story of What Grows in the Dark centers around Bridget, who 16 years ago lost her older sister Emma to the woods of their hometown Ellis Creek. Emma, who people claimed was a very troubled child, walked into those woods, never walked back out. And to leave behind this clearly traumatic experience that affected her deeply, Bridget just ran. Packed up, left Ellis Creek, refused to look back, and spent her life making a living out of being a paranormal investigator. And the thing with Bridget and her cameraman Ian is they are absolutely con artists. They set up and they fix their paranormal investigations. So when she receives a call that summons her back to Ellis Creek because of her talents as a paranormal investigator, obviously she's nervous. She realizes she might be in a bit of hot water. But when she makes her way back to Ellis Creek, things start going wrong. She dreams of trees in her room, in her body. She hears a very familiar laugh following her, just out of sight. And she starts hearing her sister's voice call her on her phone. Clearly, something is very, very fucking wrong in Ellis Creek. And the creepiness of these events and the hauntings in this book really unsettle you down to your bone. I thoroughly enjoyed the hauntings that take place in What Grows in the Dark. And the story does eventually culminate in those same woods that claimed Emma's life. And this ending actually reminds me, slight spoiler maybe if you've read the book I'm about to name drop, but it really heavily reminds me of the thing that was at the center of A God in the Shed by J.F. Dubois. And if you haven't read A God in the Shed, oh my god, what are you waiting for? Run. Don't walk. Run. Go get that book. So the issues that I had with this book, like I said, are very structural. It doesn't really have anything to do with the story itself. I found these characters to be fairly compelling. Some of them got annoying as fuck, I'm not gonna lie. I do feel like Bridget gets very punchable, and so does Ian. There's kind of like this, it's sweet at first, this unrequited love, maybe, possibly, like puppy love between them, you think. Because they've been doing this work together for how many years? I mean, they get close to one another. But the two of these characters have the interpersonal skills and communication skills of a wet paper bag. It is embarrassing sometimes. And so there were definitely some frustrating interactions between them that fit the character dynamic. They are well written, but man, do you want to punch some face and just tell them to grow up and have the conversation. But really, the structural issues that I had with the book come down to some of the metaphors that the author uses. I found them to be strange. The pacing was odd, and there was a lot of repetition over a small course of pages. In fact, there's one strange metaphor that the author uses twice in the book, and it just, my mind kind of latched onto that and pulled me out of the story at some of the worst possible moments, because my brain was just too fixated on keeping this mental count of how many times the author was using specific metaphors and specific words. Overall, though, the book is good. I had a good time. It's seriously creepy, absolutely haunting, and like I said, as frustrating as the characters are, I don't mind that when that's the point and it fits their actual personality. Remember, we're dealing with traumatized characters here. Out of 5 stars, I think I gave this a 3 or a 3.5. Solid first book for Jack Evans, and this is a book I would recommend to other readers as well. All right. We've got our final entry for my March reading wrap-up, and this one was a banger. In fact, I actually rated this one 4.5 stars in my journal, and I don't know why. I'm sitting here ruminating on all of the deliciously horrific things that happen in this book, and I'm questioning why I gave it 4.5 and not 5. Why was this not a 5-star read? In any case, if the fishbowl brain doesn't remember what was not good about this book, I say that's a good thing. And that book that we are about to discuss is The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry. And spoiler alert for the next reading wrap-up, I'm actually reading another one of Christina Henry's books. I think I may be a Henry stan because I'm only 50 pages into the next Henry book, and it is so good. I did not want to go to bed last night because I just wanted to stay up and finish this book all in one shot. That would have been a bad idea, so I put it down. I was good about that, but I'm very into the way Henry writes horror. So let's get into this book from March. The House That Horror Built is obviously a haunted house story. I mean, it's kind of in the name. But more than a haunted house, this is a haunted house that is occupied by a retired, reclusive, very eccentric, and very infamous horror film director. He ends up hiring our main character as his house cleaner. Harry Adams is poor, for lack of a better word. She is pretty destitute. She is really on hard times. She is a single mother of a teenage son, and honestly, they're on the bridge of getting evicted. And a lot of her character development in this story is very hyper-focused on the next minute to ensure that she has enough money on the table, enough food in the fridge, a roof over her son's head. This is truly the Cancerian moon archetype. And I know I'm talking astrological terms. Listen, when a book is good, I start spitting astrology. If this isn't a Mars and Moon in Cancer archetype of a woman, I don't know what is. This woman would take 1,001 bullets for her son. Her son is her entire world. And so, as much as the idea of cleaning this man's super creepy, super unsettling collection of horror props that we're all pretty sure in the beginning are very, very freaking haunted, she's got to make sure her son is able to survive, and not just survive, but thrive, be happy, be healthy. Her son's happiness and health is her number one priority. And there's one prop in her boss's house just deeply unsettles her. And it's the costume of a demon from one of this director's most famous movies ever. And the house cleaner herself is a huge horror fan. Harry loves horror. And so you'd think like she'd jump on this type of job, but soon weird things start happening in this house and she honestly starts regretting picking up this job. But again, the boy needs to eat. The boy needs to be taken care of and she's a good mom. She wants to be a good mom. There's definitely some previous religious trauma from her childhood in this story as well. The story of the house that horror built really ramps up when Harry's boss, Javier, the director, finds out about her less than favorable circumstances and the fact that she has a son. And he invites her and her son to a dinner party where he has flown in 2 Hollywood stars that have acted in that movie that creepy demon costume was featured in. And once all of these people start interacting in this house, things get more lively. Things get creepier. Harry's starting to hear things. Harry's starting to have bizarre dreams. And all of this eventually escalates in a wildly twist ending that I honestly did not see coming. And it's pretty sick and gruesome. Javier is kind of a messed up individual. You feel for him. You feel how much he loved his wife. Much like Harry loves her son, Javier would probably do the same for his wife, take 1,001 bullets for her. And that obsession is part of what makes these hauntings so vivid and horrific. Henry not only has a great command of the written word to write a horror story that has a slowly escalating build of tension and dread, but her characters are so alive. They are 3-dimensional. And honestly, I have to laugh because I feel like Harry, the main character, the house cleaner, kind of feels like me sometimes. She is very, very neurotic in the way that she has to hold all of the mental labor and the emotional labor of her and her son's household. And oftentimes, her dialogue with herself is just run-on sentences and riddled with separate ideas and side notes and footnotes and parentheses. Because much like me, when I'm trying to think of 20 different things at once, you will get every asinine footnote that comes into my brain with no filter whatsoever. It just flows so naturally for a character in her position with all of this pressure to perform, to succeed, to manage, to ensure her son doesn't notice how much she's carrying for him. So her son doesn't feel the hardship of their life situation. It really is tragic from page 1. So this, like I said, for some weird reason, I gave this book 4.5 stars. I have no bloody idea why. In this video, mark my words, it's going down in the history of this YouTube channel. The House That Horror Built by Christina Henry, 5 stars. S-tier book. Beautiful, amazing, standing ovation, round of applause, everybody. And of course, a quick spoiler alert for those of you who are still here. This is the second Christina Henry book that I'm reading. So I'll be covering this in my April reading wrap-up. I'm only about 50 pages in. But this is The Place Where They Buried Your Heart. And already, this book is effed up. This is dark. The opening sequences in here are gruesome, they are grim, they are tragic, and honestly, that spiritual warrior that cares about social justice just like is boiling at what happens in the opening sequences of this story. So I'm very excited to talk about that, but next month. For now though, thanks again so much for tuning in to another one of my wrap-ups. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I am really looking forward to sharing the books that I've been reading in April. This is the 3rd book, by the way, that I've started for April, so I've just been on a train of hit after banger after banger. In the meantime, let me know how your reading adventure has been going in 2026 in the comments down below. And by all means, leave me your recommendations. Let me know what you want to see me talk about and what books you want me to experience as well. I think that's one thing that I love about reading is the cultural experience of sharing how you felt during these stories and being able to share in someone else's joy, disgust, and dread when it comes to horror fiction. As always, have a fantastic day, and even more fantastic week. I wish you all the best of luck in continuing your reading adventures. Don't forget to take care of yourselves and each other, especially in times like these. Bye-bye.